The housing sales crash is 100% certain now because it's already happened and almost no one's talking about this. Look, CNBC's headline is March home sales drop to their lowest pace since 2009. Politico, home sales fall to lowest level since the financial crisis. The Wall Street Journal has their story. Get this, from earlier, CNN told us last year that home sales had already fallen to their lowest level since 1995? Gosh, and now they're plummeting more this year. It sounds catastrophic, and it actually is, but for who? And what should you do about it? I've got trends, data, and what this means for housing markets everywhere. So if you care about real estate, fintech, or risk to your personal finances, you'll want to watch this. Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold, Get Rich Education founder, Forbes Real Estate Council member, best-selling author, and longtime real estate investor. Springtime, the season of blooming flowers, allergy meds, and existing home sales plummeting to their worst March level since 2009. Yeah, real estate stats run a few months behind, but March is a bellwether for the whole year because it kicks off the spring home buying season. Now, you'll remember that in 2021, I was telling you and the world that a housing supply crash was underway, and that low supply with high demand would likely make home prices soar, and they sure did, up about 20% in 2021 and another 10% in 2022, but a different type of crash is certainly upon us today, and I'll tell you what's going to happen next. Now, this CNBC headline is correct. That's the slowest sales pace in 16 years, but this creates misconceptions for a lot of people. Slowing sales, that means that sales volume is falling. The number of property transactions, not home prices. The same article cites that prices rose 2.7%, and they should keep rising, though I do see the pace of price growth slowing. But let's get back to the housing sales crash that's underway now, that low volume of sales. The reasons for this glacial pace of property transactions are the same ones that have persisted for a couple years. Hampered affordability from higher mortgage rates and prices, a persistently low available housing supply, and most homeowners still locked into 3 and 4% mortgage rates, so they won't sell. Now, this crash in sales volume is different from low supply. If people can't afford a home, it doesn't matter what the supply is. They won't buy them because they can't. Now, we'll look at sales shortly, but you can see that the supply is way up off its 2022 supply crash bottom, but there's still a low supply available. I mean, we need at least 1.5 million units to have an adequate inventory of homes to buy in order to meet America's pent-up housing demand. Think of that as available supply on the shelf. As for today's sales crash problem, which is how much of that supply is coming off the shelf as a home sale, here we go. Here's just what today's sales crash does look like. Think of this as the transaction count. It peaked at 6.6 million a few years ago. Yeah, odd way to show it. A K-1,000 is a million. See what happened back in May 2020? That was down to 4 million because the market seized up then during COVID. Open houses were shut down. People weren't putting their homes on the market because the pandemic created wild uncertainty. And today, there's no pandemic, yet we're at about those same alarmingly low levels again. Really weirdly low sales volume here, and it could very well go lower. So available supply is up off the bottom, but sales volume is what's hit a low now. So who's this actually affecting? Well, this moribund condition really doesn't impact existing homeowners and real estate investors much because this hasn't affected market values much. The people who are crushed most now are the hordes of professionals that make their livelihood from real estate transactions. For starters, I'm talking about realtors. That's who it's going to continue to hurt. I mean, look, just imagine, what if your salary got cut by 30 33%. I mean, that could be like an economic Armageddon in your household. Well, a few years ago, sales volume was 6 million and now it's 4, so that's a 33% cut. Yeah, people have to deal with that. It's a major problem. And it's not just realtors, it's other groups that this sales volume crash is affecting. It's mortgage lenders, title insurers, moving truck companies, and furniture companies. So for all these people, this is actually worse than a housing price decline. These people have time to take up pickleball. And with fewer homes selling, another group that's hurt are renters. They can't buy the home they want, and that's why they're still your loyal tenant. That wannabe homeowner stays as a renter. These are the people getting pummeled, and why. This chart of sales volume makes the effect seem less dramatic when you see it plotted out each year this way, and that peaks each summer when home buying activity is the greatest. That's why you see the peak in the middle. But when you see that CNBC headline about home sales dropping to the slowest pace since 2009, that sounds dramatic. And this chart makes the effect seem more mild. Now this leads into something huge that I want to show you, where you can learn some real lessons that you're going to benefit from for decades, even the rest of your life, in interpreting financial media stories. But first, go ahead and put a like on the video if you like how I'm breaking it down. Really appreciate the thumbs up. And if you're serious about building real wealth through real estate and you want the strategies that the pros aren't sharing on YouTube, you've got to get my free newsletter. I'll show you how to grow your portfolio, boost cash flow, and protect your wealth in any market. It's quick, it's free, and it's packed with value. Just text GRE to 66866 and you're in. Don't miss this. We don't send you intrusive texts either. It's an email letter. I've covered why a lot of people see the words housing sales crash and mistakenly think price crash. So with that in mind, let me show you 8 or 10 fictitious headlines that get misinterpreted, tell you what makes these misleading, and then translate what they really mean for you. And this is going to help you from being misled. These are the same types of headlines you and I have seen in the past, and we're going to see again in the future in real life. Here, I'll interpret these for you and read carefully. Existing home sales fall off a cliff. When you see a headline like that, yes, we already discussed how that means sales volume, not price, but note that this is for existing homes, also known as resale homes, and that means that it excludes new build homes, which are a third of all of today's home sales. The very subject that I've been breaking down in this video is only for existing homes, like I said earlier. Did you catch that part? Here's what new build single-family homes are doing, and their sales volume is close to average. That makes the whole sales crash phenomenon going on today more mild than you might have thought. Here's another one. Softwood lumber prices hit all-time record high. Well, with persistent inflation, this might not be a reason for alarm. Is it an inflation-adjusted high or not? I mean, prices for most everything are always going up. Another headline that you might see in the future, mortgage rates have dropped 2% in 2028. Most people read this and assume, oh, well, real estate values are going to soar as a result. More people can afford more. Maybe, maybe not. The Fed might have cut rates because the economy needs the help, so it could mean we're in a recession. California leads the nation in out-migration. Some people assume that this means that California is losing population. Oh no, we would need to know so much more than that. If they're first out of 50 states in the number of people moving out, well, raw numbers aren't per capita. Cali is the largest state by population, and also if their in-migration, people moving in, exceeds this out-migration, people moving out, then they have positive net migration. But even that wouldn't tell the whole population change story because migration doesn't count births and deaths. Foreclosures spike 50% year over year. Sometimes this is worth keeping an eye on. I mean, high foreclosures means people can't make their home payments, and we might be trending toward a recession or stagnating home values. And though this is fictitious, just like the other headlines here, a phenomenon like this did recently occur, but it's still at a low level. Foreclosures just rose from an extremely low level, 0.4% up to 0.6. That's a 50% increase. So what? it's low. And here's one type of headline that really catches people off guard. Philadelphia new build home prices surge 8%. Okay, you might think this market is pretty hot, but what if new build Philly homes are constructed with 10% more square footage this year? Then they're selling at a lower cost per square foot. Not a bullish sign. And this is also why existing home price change is more meaningful anytime that you look at price change stats. I've got 3 more headlines for you. It's an interesting way of learning to see how stats can lie and media headlines can be misleading. Unemployment claims jump 30% in a week. All right, this usually doesn't mean that there are mass layoffs and an economic Armageddon. Say that initial jobless claims rose from 200,000 to 260,000. All right, that's a 30% jump, but it's still low relative to recession levels, which are typically 400,000 plus. Developer uses tax loophole to build apartment complex. You know, reporters use the word loophole to describe legally and intentionally created incentives to build much needed housing. They're often doing yeoman's work on behalf of NIMBYs. They're helping out the not in my backyard people. Look, if it's producing more housing, then we need more loopholes and incentives like it because we still have a housing shortage. Warren Buffett invests $10 billion in apartment REITs. Buffett should be spelled with a double T. Did you notice? It's the most frequently misspelled name in financial media. Well, you'll surely see real headlines like all these in the future, so I hope that this helps you decipher the true meaning. I've got more vital information for you. Are all the baby boomers going to sell their homes and finally create a housing price crash? You'll be surprised. I break that down here. And why aren't mortgage rates dropping? Watch that here.